Hey, I'm Robert Drysdale. I'm going to be showing you guys side control now. Now, side control is one of those positions where there's so many different ways you can control your opponent, so many different things to look for. You know, it's hard to actually call it side control because this is not only one position. There are like probably hundreds of variations. Okay. Now, basically, what I have is we have like a crossbody position. See how he's horizontal and I'm like this, like an X kind of. This is normally what we call side control. I'm past his legs. I don't have to deal with this guard anymore. I've passed it already. So now I'm going to start looking for submissions. This right here is what I call a 100 kilo side control. So what I'm going to be doing is I got this underhook. Remember, the underhook is when I have my arm underneath his armpit. I'm going to be locking my grips. This right here I don't like. You can lock it like this. Sometimes I get my thumb on the inside. You can even go like this if you prefer. Just don't use this right here. This is what you don't want. Okay. Now, the reason I call it 100 kilos is because I'm going to be pushing my shoulder into my opponent's face. You see how I make myself heavy? The pressure feels like you have like 100 kilos on your face. So I'm actually almost like I'm leaning into his face. And once again, I'm trying to make his life miserable. I want him to regret stepping on the mat with me. I want him to feel like he wants to go back home and he wants to quit. So I'm putting as much pressure as I can. It doesn't mean I'm going to throwing myself over. I still want to have base. I still want to be in position. But I'm just keeping it really tight. Another important thing is I keep my head really low, as close as possible to his arm. I shouldn't keep my head up. If my head is up, he can push me away. Yeah, you can use that hand and push me away. So I'll go back. I'm going to keep my head as close as possible to his shoulder. So now if he tries to push me away, he actually can't even use that arm because I'm blocking it with my head. You see this? Now, if I turn around, you're going to notice I'm going to have my left knee right next to his head. Now what this knee is doing is actually following him around. So if he tries to hip out, if he tries to get away from me, I have to follow him. If I were here, this would create space for him to get this knee in front of my stomach, and then he would put me back in guard. I don't want that. I got to close space. And this is something very important when you're attacking your opponent. Closing distance. You got to be as tight as possible. This is how tight you want to be on your opponent the whole time. He wants to create space, because space will allow him to move. Do I want him to move? Of course not. So you got to stay as tight as possible. I am so tight like I'm trying to smash him. Like I'm trying to make him tap from the pressure. That's a very important concept in my system, is that I'm always trying to make my opponent so uncomfortable in every situation that he wants to quit. He's going to give me something. He's going to make a mistake because he's very uncomfortable. If he's uncomfortable, he will make mistakes, I promise you. You put him in a comfortable spot and you let him move, he's going to put you back in guard, he's going to go to his knees, you're going to lose that match. Stay tight. Very important. Like an anaconda. Take every little space away from him. Don't let him move. So I'll be in here. Notice that I have my left knee right next to his hip. My right leg can be extended. There are times I can have it up here a little bit higher. I don't know. See from there. But you just have to be sure you don't overdo it, you don't fall over. The common things going against someone stronger than you might be you get turned over. Sometimes that happens. So you can't overdo it. You want to stay heavy on your opponent, just be careful. You don't want your opponent throwing you over. Okay? So this leg right here, my right leg, I can stay on my knees if I want. Normally I keep this knee on his hip and my right leg extended. I kind of keep my right hip on the ground, and this is my position right here. This is one way of controlling side control. The other one is when I face his legs. So here, I control his shoulder, and I keep my right knee now on his hip. And I butt flop. See how I'm on my side and I'm facing his legs? Okay, this is my position right here. I like to control this wrist, push it against his stomach, make sure he doesn't underhook me. I gotta keep this wrist down. You see this position? Different way of controlling side control. From here, very common thing, I can move to north-south, where I trap his arm with my armpit, with my elbow, and I keep my head on his stomach. I have one arm trapping his arm, and the other one I'm trapping his shoulder. So I'm in this position right here. One arm is on the inside, the other one's on the outside. And I keep my head really low. And this is what we call a north-south. You see this? Now from here, I can always transition to the other side, where now I have my elbow on the mat, and I don't have his shoulder. Remember, the other side control, I was facing his legs, and I had his shoulder trapped. Now I actually have my elbow on his armpit. It's the same butt flop. I'm still facing his legs, but it's a different control. Okay, this is going to open up a lot of submission and a lot of attacks. Different option would be just turn around. It's the same thing. I got my underhook right here. I have my elbow on the mat. I have my body over his body. You see this? I bring my right knee up as close as possible to him. I want to keep control of this arm, and I don't stay up here. Keep my head a little bit lower. It doesn't have to be all the way down. Just don't keep it too high. Just right about here. The important thing about side control is I'm always putting as much weight as possible on my opponent. If I'm not controlling his head, I got to make sure I keep him down somehow. So instead of keeping all my weight on my butt, I'm actually making it easier on Kavaka right now. But normally in the match, I'll be putting all my weight on his ribcage, on his lungs. So it makes it harder for him to breathe. There's no power involved, but it's a lot harder for him to move now because I just positioned myself on top of him. And now he has to carry my weight around whenever he wants to move. That will tire him out. That will force him into making mistakes because he's in an uncomfortable position. So here, instead of putting my weight on my knee, on my feet, or on my butt, I'm just going to position myself on top of him. This makes me a lot heavier. Now, these are the things that are going to allow me to submit my opponent. These little, small, subtle details that most people don't even pay attention to. Now, this right here is what could force Kavaka into making a mistake. This right here is what's going to open him up. So I can go for an armbar, for a choke, mount, back, whatever. Okay? So always make him uncomfortable. Stay tight. Don't give him any space.